Hey guys, Talkaholics, thank you guys for being here today. The oil services sector is beginning a sharp recovery. If you guys don't know, first of all, the oil services space, the way I kind of think of them, they are kind of like the picks and shovels for the oil industry. So they offer all the products and services that help with the production and exploration of oil and gas. Now that this, like the overall oil space, the oil industry, this sector has been in a bear market, a severe bear market since about 2015. This is when a lot of the international oil major producers out there sharply began reducing their capex spend. And when they did that, that really hurt the bottom line in a lot of these services companies. But we're seeing that there is signs that there is a turnaround happening in this industry. And when we're talking about cyclicals, one of the best times, not investment advice, just my opinion, one of the best times to invest in a cyclical is when the industry is going from terrible to a little bit less bad. And that's what I would say the oilfield services space looks like right now. They are still terrible, but they're getting better. Okay. If you look at an index like the VanEck Oil Services ETF, you can see how terrible this bear market has been for the services space. In terms of the medical event that happened in 2020, in terms of the share price and the overall ETF, we've just seen that the oil services has recovered to pre-pandemic levels. But what I would say is that the market for the oil services space is completely different than it was pre-pandemic. There is a significantly better long-term environment, I believe. Okay. There's also a trope that I hear recently on Twitter and all over the place that some really smart people say, by the way, like Josh Young and Eric Nuttall. They'll say, well, these oil companies out there, the producers are they're more disciplined this time. We're seeing that they're not going out and spending. That might be true for some companies here and there, but we are seeing that oil services spending is increasing globally. Okay. These kinds of tropes I hear all the time in cyclicals, that there's going to be more discipline. Eventually that changes. Lemming behavior kicks in and everybody starts rushing to produce more. I hear the same thing in shipping, by the way. There's a trope I hear there, like the shipping companies, we don't know what ships to order because there's looming environmental regulations, the IMO regulations. We don't know what to order. But then as soon as they start making a little bit of money, they go out and they buy ships. So it completely discredits that trope. I think the same thing is true in the oil space, that they're going to, maybe not immediately, maybe they'll clean up their balance sheet, maybe they'll return a little bit to shareholders, but eventually you will, as like in any oil cycle, any industry, you will see increasing production, increasing spending in oil services. Okay, recently I listened to a conference call from Schlumberger, I hope I said that, Schlumberger and Haliburton, okay? And Schlumberger, by the way, had the best quarter they had since 2015, and there was a lot of optimistic remarks that came from these companies. I wanted to kind of share some of the ideas that they were talking about in these two conference calls. Okay, first of all, this is a quote from Olivier Lepoux. He's from Schlumberger. First, I want to reinforce that the macro environment we are facing is quite unique. It's a confluence and unprecedented low spare capacity, 8 years of underinvestment in international basins, and a call for energy security that is creating a double sourcing of both oil and gas parts of the international basins. So when you put that together, it trades not only on a short cycle impulse on production enhancements to respond to that energy security, but also reinforce the need for expanding oil capacity, accelerating gas development in the entire set of international basins, both offshore and onshore. The offshore space has also been in a tremendous bear market, probably even worse than the onshore space. Now, one of the things they also mention on these conference calls is they're just like a lot of the oil producers out there, their oil services sector is very tight. There is a lot of tight capacity. Because there's been such underinvestment in the space, a lot of their equipment is older. When you are seeing new units coming online, really those are rigs or whatever they may be. Those are going and basically replacing older ones, not so much in terms of expansion. Now they will expand too, but that hasn't happened yet. Okay, just like the oil producers, this industry will expand over time. Okay. Um, Over the last couple of years, because of the medical event and the response to that and that underinvestment, there has been a lot of bankruptcies, there's been a lot of consolidation, and again, there's that reduction in supply. Now, one of the other themes on these conference calls is energy security. We've seen that there is a big energy crisis around the world happening, but one of the biggest places that that's happening is in Europe. And so we're seeing this narrative, this bigger theme out there of energy security. There's a quote from Jeff Miller of Haliburton. My outlook on the sort of trajectory of the market today, the macro in terms of supply shortage, we are short oil in the world. And I think really importantly, not only is the price of the commodity always important, but energy security has moved back central, front and central for a lot of countries and continents. Because of the disruption in this energy supply chain, a lot of countries are focusing on services spending to increase that oil production in all kinds of places. And a lot of these oil services companies benefit from that. Okay. One of the other ideas out there is that there is a recession looming, that because we're going to enter into a global down period that is going to likely lead to a very poor performance in any oil company out there, including the oil services sector. But it doesn't seem likely. And the reason for that is because supply is just so dang tight out there. Even though we may be entering a global recession, maybe not, maybe we are, but there are some other things out there to consider. Like recently, even though we've seen a lot of commodity prices going down, we see that China is still in lockdown. We see that jet fuel has still not fully recovered all around the world. So if those kinds of events happen where these places start to open up again, we already have tight capacity, tight supply. The oil inventories are very low. If these kinds of events happen, it can make the market even more tight, right? So even if you do go into a recession, it is not likely to fix the supply issue, okay? That is what this is really coming down to. It's a supply side issue as well, okay? There's a quote from Jeff Miller. And the tightness around oil supply is not something that's resolved quickly after 7-8 years of underinvestment. And so while I'm excited about the inflection and the improvement in the upcycle that we see, I have to say I'm equally excited about the duration. This is multiples of years, a decade in the making. It's many years in undoing in terms of producing. And so I think this is a fantastic time for operators and an even better time for his company, Haliburton. And so I think we are in the beginning of a multiple year upcycle for the oil space in general, but also for the oil services. As a result of those thoughts, I have been increasing my exposure to the space over the last several months. I have a selection of companies both onshore and offshore. Let me know what you guys think about the space, and if you guys have any companies, I'd be interested to hear about that too in the comments below. Have a great day.